Joining me now, Neil Katyal, former acting Solicitor General of the United States, Saunders Professor of Law at Georgetown University, and MSNBC legal analyst. Rick Wilson, co-founder of the Lincoln Project, Republican media strategist and author of Running Against the Devil, A Plot to Save America from Trump and Democrats from Themselves. And Sarah Kendzior, co-host of the podcast Gaslit Nation, author of They Knew, How a Culture of Conspiracy Keeps America Complacent. Thank you all very much for coming to the Saturday show. Neil, starting with you, Trump's attorney Joe Tacopina says they're appealing the verdict in the E. Jean Carroll case. What are his chances of success on appeal?
Slim to none, Jonathan. So Trump had two things that happened to him this week with respect to Jean Carroll. One is, as you say, he lost this $5 million verdict against him, unanimous conviction by the jury. And now he's saying he's going to appeal. And his argument is he couldn't get a fair trial in New York because the entire state is biased against him. Give me a break. We heard that when we prosecuted, for example, Derek Chauvin in Minneapolis. That went nowhere. Courts routinely reject these kinds of arguments. Trump lived in New York. He acted. All these events occurred in New York City. It's going nowhere and nowhere fast. And then the second front was, as you mentioned in this town hall, Trump opened up yet another lawsuit by Jean Carroll, calling her story fake, a made-up story, and the like. So instead of Trump, who wants 4 more years, Trump got 4 more lawsuits, I think.
And so how likely is it, do you think, that Carroll's attorneys will sue him again?
Well, legally, it's really strong because actually the first jury verdict is itself kind of preclusive, so it would perhaps even bind a second trial. But she may just decide, look, I've already done my work here. I don't want to have yet another trial. So I think it's really more up to her. Legally, the case would be very strong, though.
So when asked about the classified documents found at Mar-a-Lago, Trump said, quote, I have the absolute right to do whatever I want with them. And he said, quote, they become automatically declassified when I took them. Was this a gift to Special Counsel Jack Smith's investigation?
Well, I mean, Trump is sounding like a 3-year-old. It's mine, it's mine, it's mine. Nobody who's handled national security documents thinks that's true at all. So does this statement help the prosecution? I guess marginally. He's saying he took the documents. He admitted it. He can't rule out that he doesn't still have classified documents to this day. He can't rule out that he didn't show them to other people. All that happened in the town hall. So I think it marginally helps. But the truth is the evidence against Trump on the stolen documents, Jonathan, is so strong. I mean, if evidence were rain, this guy would be a walking monsoon. So I don't think Jack Smith needs it, but he's got it.
Sarah, what was on display at that CNN town hall was not only an authoritarian growling for a comeback, but an audience that was eating it up with laughter and applause. Was that the most vivid display yet of the erosion of our democracy?
No, I think the most vivid display is the fact that we're having this conversation 8 years later, the exact same conversation we had in 2015 and 2016 when he ran, when America fully knew that he had this record as a career criminal with ties to hostile foreign regimes. According to Puck and other news sources, that audience was told they were not allowed to boo Trump, that they had to applaud him, which is the kind of, scene that you would see in an authoritarian regime. But what we're really suffering from here is a lack of consequences. This was not really a bad week for Trump. It's a bad week for America because of Trump. It's a bad week because he fomented a coup, committed obstruction of justice, abused the power, pardoned power, allegedly committed multiple acts of rape. And, if I list the rest, I'll be here all day. And there has not been meaningful consequences. The first time Trump was investigated by the Department of Justice was in 1973. So we're now on the half centennial. He's been under investigation since before I was born. And that's true for most Americans. And we've never seen real meaningful consequences that constrain him and his backers from hurting the American people. It's the American people who matter. It's our rights, it's our suffering, and it's our future.
Sarah, can you talk about the significance of Trump's both-siding Russia's war on Ukraine? He couldn't even say Ukraine should emerge victorious.
Yeah, I mean, this is a long-standing trend. You can find old videos of Trump praising Putin, praising the Kremlin going back to 2014. The reason for this is because a lot of Trump's real estate properties were bought up by Russian mafiosos, people tied to oligarchs, to the Kremlin. He's had those long-standing ties for several decades when the Russian mafia replaced the Italian mafia under Rudy Giuliani. So he has a personal investment here. He also has a personal interest in not being prosecuted for any of this. And a great way to do that, as he learned between 2016 and 2020, is to become the president of the United States and manipulate the law and rewrite it in his favor and use people like Bill Barr, to abuse the power of the Attorney General's position in that way. And it's sad to see he's still at it. And yes, there's also a danger for the people of Ukraine, a profound danger, if Trump manages to get back into office.
Rick Wilson, ever since the town hall, key Republicans have emerged to either distance themselves from him or outright declare it's time for the party to move on from him. Senator Todd Young now indicating he won't support Trump's 2024 bid. That's great and all, but is it too late? Is the Republican Party doomed to have Trump as its nominee and everything that comes with it?
Jonathan, one of the most fundamental rules in politics is you can't beat something with nothing. And as much as there's been a sort of establishment Republican Party and Wall Street donor class, fangirling of Ron DeSantis, his campaign is already stumbling when it comes out of the gate. He's already managed to alienate a lot of major donors. And Trump's numbers have only increased the more transgressive and badly he behaves. His numbers increased after the FBI raid. They increased after the Bragg indictment. They increased with Republican likely voters after the Carroll decision this week in 2 polls that I saw. And so I think we are in a situation where the negative incentives inside the Republican Party are going to make it more and more likely that the base is going to rally around this guy one more time. And he's leading Ron DeSantis in some polls by 50 points. This is not an easy climb, especially as Trump continues to sort of darken the sun with the media as he did in the past, where people do not learn the lessons of the past, that if you give him an unfettered, untrammeled, environment, he will go out and no one is good enough to stop the lying and no one's good enough to fact check him in real time. And I think the week for Trump with the E. Jean Carroll judgment was one that really illustrated not only the depravity of Donald Trump's character, but the depravity of the people who support and follow him and excuse this kind of behavior.